In this video, I'll give a walkthrough of the current population survey. The place to find the current population survey and its data is ipums.org. We're going to keep going back to this website because it has a lot of different data programs that are all housed within it. But we're going to start with IPUMS CPS, the current population survey, and we'll go here. Like anything, you're going to need a login to access the data. Where you want to start once you've signed in is go to select data. One of the trickier steps of using CPS data is the number of different iterations of the survey. And so let's go look at the different samples that they have. These are the default options that they've checked. The ASEC, the Annual Social and Economic Supplement, is a yearly sort of aggregation of the data that they collect. But the survey is done monthly, and so you can also choose data based on a specific month. Within those monthly topics, or within the monthly iterations of the survey, there's a base set of questions that they ask, and then there's something called supplemental topics, which are a little bit more specific. They're only asked to a subset of the respondents. You can see the different options that gives: agricultural workers, civic engagement, computer and internet use. You can see that these aren't available for all samples. They're not asking about it every year or even, and especially not every month. But these give sort of more detailed and narrow questions that you might want to work with in your research. Underbanked, public arts, work schedules. And so you can think about whether any of these topics speak to an interest of yours. And so when we're starting out to search for the data, we don't want to sort of choose. We may want to start by looking at all the samples and thinking about what is available. But once we sort of hone in on what we actually want to study, we're not going to want all of our samples because we won't have the questions or the data across all of those instances of the survey. And so if, for instance, we're interested in studying civic engagement, I would want to make sure that these samples are included, and I might want to go back and make sure that all of the default options that they give me are not going to be included, since there aren't going to be the civic engagement questions that I want. You can see that the survey goes back to 1962, so it's long running. Some of this you can track all the way back in terms of sort of state population, different basic demographic questions, but these more narrow monthly questions are only going to be available generally in sort of the more recent iterations. And so we've got our samples selected. We've got these 8 samples which are concerned with civic engagement. Submit that, and then we can start to look through the different variables that we want. And so for the individual, for a person, these are individuals that are clustered within households. They ask questions both about the households for people and for the individual. The core is the basic questions that they're going to ask every iteration. So they have demographic information, work information, education information for people in each monthly survey. And then these are the supplements that they're only asking for occasionally. So we can look at the questions that come with the civic engagement. Some of these questions are available in more recent iterations. Some are retired. So you can see frequency voting in local elections. They asked that in 2013 and 2011, but not in 2017 or 2010 or 2009. And so the availability of any of these questions is going to be dependent on the specifics. That's for the sort of supplemental, the more narrow questions. The core things are going to be available in all the iterations. So this X means that it's available in this iteration. We have their age, their sex, their race. Every time that they do the survey, they'll have that. Household, there's also questions about the geography, the economic characteristics of the household. And so you can look at the geographic questions, right? The recording, the region, the state, the metro for people on every iteration. And so this allows us to look both at individuals or households with this data, but we can also aggregate some of these queries up to a higher level of analysis to make an estimate about phenomena going on, maybe at the metropolitan level or the state level. And it's surveys like these that allow us to look at differences across those different geographies. And so when I want to add a variable and I find something I like, I just click the plus. Let's go back to the person level and the civic engagement. Maybe I want to add whether they boycotted a product of a company for a political reason. I'll go and add some demographics, marital status, race, sex, and age. And maybe I think that I'm done. I'll go and view my cart. And I can see that most of these questions are available across all the samples. And when I'm satisfied that I have what I want, I could go back and add more samples or add more variables. But I'll create my data extract. I have to give it a name. And I'll call this practice. I can see the summaries here that it's 8 samples with 14 variables. I can change the data format here. And so the default is DTA for Stata. I would prefer to go and have this as a CSV, but I could do a different data form as well. Name it, and then I'll submit. And I'll get an email when this is available. And once it's available, I can go and I can click download on the file. I can look at the code book while I'm waiting. And if I want to change it later, I can go and click on the revise extract. It'll start with the same exact files. It'll start with everything that I had before, and I can go back and either subtract or add new things or change it however I want.